In this edition of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, our special guest, Solomon Wilcots. Great player for the Cincinnati Bengals, part of the SWAT team, now outstanding broadcaster for many, many years, covering the National Football League with various networks, radio stations, Sirius Radio, most recently here, doing a great job. Also with Pro Football Focus, he is a multi-talented individual in terms of his football knowledge. We're going to talk to him about his feelings about the Bengals' effort in Super Bowl 56, about what they're doing in free agency, what they're doing in the draft. Are there any trade possibilities? And Solomon, he's all over it. He's over in Indianapolis covering the combine for Sirius NFL Radio, and it is serious over there. Solly is well connected. Find out what he's got to say. In this edition of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, our special guest, the legendary Solomon Wilcots, who is a busy man. Combine, Solly, you're over in Indianapolis at the Combine. It's a crazy week, and you're doing some great stuff with Sirius Radio, man.
Well, hey, thank you, Dave. Greatly appreciated. This is a good time of the year, to kind of stop down from the madness of the regular season, the postseason, and just come back together. It's been a couple of years since the global pandemic hit, and now we all get to be in the same building back together, general managers, head coaches, and a lot of us, we become close friends over the years. And so it's kind of good to be able to even break bread or just sit down and have some coffee, maybe with a new head coach, and talk about his vision for his team. We had 9 head coaching vacancies. All have been filled now, and all of those head coaches are here. The new general managers are all here. So it's kind of a good time to come together.
Yeah, and it's where everything happens. I mean, the agents are there, trade, any kind of trade rumors that start or are kind of started there and expand there and grow there. And a lot of talk about trades, but very few happen. But it's interesting to everybody exchanging ideas and information. It's kind of, it's where the action is in the offseason for the league. There's no doubt.
It really is. Yeah, because we're about to head into the new league year, right? And it's really, the trades and everything. It's one thing to say, hey, I'll take your player and I'll take, maybe your player or your draft picks. But the other part of it, the invisible part of it, is this thing called the salary cap, right?
Yeah.
The money has to really measure up. The budgets all have to align. So you want to swap players for draft picks, but if a team can't accommodate that player's salary, right? Veteran players, most of them come with a hefty salary, and you got to be able to squeeze them under the salary cap as you're looking to build your team out. And that's why the draft still seen as the most ideal way to do it, because of the rookie wage scale. You're not going to have to overpay for players who are unproven, and that's what the rookie salary cap is all about.
So the Bengals advance all the way to the Super Bowl. Solly, we haven't talked since the Super Bowl ended, obviously, and heartbreaker. I mean, within a minute and a half of being world champions. I mean, it's just another unbelievable finish. But I'll tell you, it was a source of pride for me to see them play the way they played and give the effort that they gave. What was your take after the Super Bowl? What's the first thing that came to your mind?
First, I was extremely proud of the team and the efforts that they had given. I thought they overachieved, right? I mean, let's face it, because none of us expected them to even be in the Super Bowl,
Yep.
let alone come so close to winning. But once we got there, I deep down to my marrow, I thought the Bengals were going to win the game.
Yep.
And I thought they had a chance to win the game. And that's all you can ask for, is on your best day, your best effort, that you have a chance to do it. And now you know what we need to do to go back and sort of realign and start to try to fill in the missing pieces to put together a championship team. I agree with Joe Burrow. We should be doing this from here on out, right? He said this is the standard now, and it ought to be. And I think it's a new day in Cincinnati. I think it's not hyperbole to suggest that the Cincinnati Bengals could expect to compete for division championships, to be going not just into the postseason, but deep into the postseason. I think it'd be unrealistic for fans to say, just because we have Joe Burrow, we should go to the Super Bowl every year. And if we don't, it's disappointing. So don't skew so far right from reality. But I do think there is an expectation that we can get into the tournament and we should be competing in the tournament every year.
I agree, Solly. And I think Joe Burrow, he's maybe one of the more grounded superstars I think I've ever met. I think he understands that um, it's going to take a lot of work, as they say, run it back. It's not just verbally, run it back. We're there again. It's a whole new dynamic. You got to start from scratch. There's going to be some different players. There's already some different coaches, part of the staff. There's going to be different players that are part of the thing. And we both run Super Bowl teams.
Mm-hmm.
And the following year after our Super Bowl, we had a work stoppage, unfortunately. But when we did play 9 of the games, we went 7-2 and had the best record in the regular season, that following year. But we did not play well in the playoffs, and the Jets smoked us. Freeman McNeil rushed for over 200 yards against us, knocked us out of the tournament. But it's hard to get back. It's hard to maintain that level of success, isn't it? It's hard to keep at that high bar.
Yeah, it's hard because you're not really duplicating. You're trying to do something totally different with different people, right? No team ever comes back the same and intact. Even Tampa Bay, right, that brought back all 22 starters from 1 year ago after winning a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. They weren't the same. They had different coaches. They had different players go down and had to bring in other guys to replace those players once some of those veteran guys go down. So you're always playing with a new sort of chemistry, right? With a new mix of personalities and individuals. Not to mention the opponent is gunning for you every single week. You're not going to sneak up on anyone. Bengals aren't going to do that in 2022. Everybody knows that it's a team that's worthy of deserving your best shot, and that's exactly what they're going to get from everyone. So that makes the road a little more difficult, the climb much steeper. But they should expect that, and it's going to take more than what they gave the previous year just to accomplish the same thing, let alone to go beyond and win a championship.
So, what's the buzz like at the combine? You're there for the entire week, as we said. You're coming to us from your hotel room, and you're a hell of a guy for doing that for us. What's the buzz like there about the Cincinnati Bengals? What are you hearing from people about the season and the turnaround that the Bengals did have?
Yeah, you might hear a lot of talk about this leading up to the draft, Mike. Some of the teams, because every year we talk about it being a really deep pool of wide receivers coming out in the draft. And this year's, Dave, there's no different. There's going to be a very deep pool of talented wide receivers. But I think based on what the Bengals were able to accomplish last year after drafting Jamar Chase and putting him in the same huddle with his previous college quarterback in Joe Burrow, and to watch that chemistry click and hit so early in the season and have it yield huge dividends for the Cincinnati Bengals offense. You may hear that kind of talk of pairing wide receivers with their old quarterback if you can do so. It won't be the thing that drives the interest of the team, but it could be the thing that breaks the tie, right, between one player maybe or another. There are going to be a lot of wide receivers drafted in the 2022 draft, and you could expect there's going to be a lot of talk about, hey, maybe we could do kind of what the Bengals did with Burrow and Jamar Chase. We can go out and get our quarterback one of the talented receivers he threw to in college, or if you get a quarterback who you may already have one of those receivers currently on your team.
So, in my opinion, the three needs for the Cincinnati Bengals are the offensive line and edge. You can never have enough good edge rush guys in the corner.
Right.
Obviously cornerback. Those three. In your opinion, Solly, and from what you're hearing from people, how deep is the draft at those three position groups? Is it a pretty good draft overall, or is it kind of focused depth-wise on one position or a couple of position groups? What's it look like?
Yeah, you're going to hear a lot about how it's not a rich quarterback class, right? For the first time this century, right? Since the century began, we may not see a quarterback taken in the top 10 of the first round.
Wow.
And that would be the first time in the last 21 years. So, but we do have a very deep and wide pool of players at those skill positions that you mentioned, at the wide receiver position, at the cornerback position, edge rushers, and offensive line. So I think that bodes well for a Bengals team who's going to have the 31st overall selection in the first round, considering that they just played in the Super Bowl. So
Right.
there's going to be a really good player there at one of those positions as a quarterback, as a wide receiver. Not that they have the need for that, but tight end might be on the menu right at the 31st overall pick. But certainly offensive lineman, because we're going to need, we have free agency to get through, but the Bengals may need a center or guard or even a tackle. And you won't be shy about taking a really good offensive lineman at either one of those positions with the 31st overall pick. So because the COVID situation around college football and them giving players an extra year, we call it that super senior, right? That fifth, maybe even a guy who was already a fifth-year guy is given an extra year.
Yep.
And to play in college. Now those guys are all coming out this year. So we're going to have some players who might be a six. I don't even, it doesn't sound right saying it. A sixth-year senior, right? Or a fifth-year guy. But you're going to have more of those players, right, who stayed in college a little bit longer because of COVID. That's why we have a much broader pool of players, as well as a talent pool that's very deep.
When you look at what Duke Tobin did, and of course not just Duke, and he'd be the first to tell you, his entire department and coaches, everybody in the organization were part of it. But they built through free agency, the draft, and even trade. Over the last couple of years. What do you think? Is a combination of all of it the best way? Is it gearing more toward the draft the better way to go, and supplementing it with free agency? How do you think that most of the league views building a successful organization with salary cap concerns?
Yeah, I think the Rams just kind of changed everyone's mind on that a little bit, right? After winning a Super Bowl, they kind of did the Tom Brady thing. At least Matthew Stafford did, change the team 1 year, then jump to another team and win the Super Bowl immediately. And we all know the Rams sort of mortgaged the future, right? They don't have a first round pick until 2024, but they went out and won it. They leveraged all of those picks and pushed them into the present to go get guys like Matthew Stafford, right? Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, Odell Beckham Jr., and they went out and won it. And so I think what we've seen is that you can take two different paths to arrive at the same destination, whether it's hard in on the trade route and giving up those draft picks for a known veteran commodity, or you could take the draft route and say, we know that's a slower process in terms of doing it. Or you can marry the two like the Bengals have done, and you can draft and you can use free agency to build the team maybe a little bit quicker and throw a trade or two in there. And so I think there's still going to be a good mix of that. I think there's going to be some teams that in this year's draft, if they're heavy on the salary cap side, they may say, look, let's go ahead and dive into the draft, because we know the talent pool through the draft comes to you cheaper for the first 4 years. If you have plenty of money under the salary cap, you may choose to leverage some of that money in free agency and still go build in the draft. That's what you saw the New England Patriots do last year. They spent more money in free agency than they had ever done in their franchise history, but still use a draft pick to go get a quarterback like Mac Jones. So I think the smart way is to know where your team is currently and what do you need to fill the holes that you think are needed to make you a championship team. But you can't stand pat. In today's NFL, Dave, you got to be very aggressive, because other teams will leapfrog you. That's what the Bengals did, right?
Yep.
They jumped over Pittsburgh and even Cleveland, who everyone had predicted to be the darling of the AFC. Buffalo, everyone had them potentially representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. And the Bengals leapfrogged and leaped ahead of a lot of those teams who are up-and-coming teams by being very aggressive in both the draft, trade, and free agency.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, you look at the popularity of the National Football League, and you compare it now with the troubles that Major League Baseball is having. I mean, it's just that they're in a very, very tough spot. And here, the most recent Super Bowl 56, was consumed in some way, shape, or form by 200 million people on game day. 200 million. I mean, that's almost 2/3 of the population. The NFL is at its all-time high in terms of popularity. It is a 900-pound gorilla, isn't it?
It really is. And, I pinch myself because I think we kind of hit the sweet spot. We came in at a time where, maybe the players weren't making, a ton of money, but the way the league has grown, what it's done is opened up other opportunities for a lot of people to be part of the NFL family, be part of that economic system that allows us to prolong our careers even beyond our playing days.
Yep.
Whether it's through data analytics, you've got people who are, and I kind of pride myself on being a nerd, so I use that term fondly. So you have a lot of nerds that love our game, right? They love the numerical data and understand how some of these numbers allows us to be highly predictive in the analytical process. And now they found a home in the National Football League. And now just recently with the general manager who's been high with the Minnesota Vikings, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, he's now a general manager. He started out as a data scientist guy, right? And the guy has worked to help. He was just recently with the Cleveland Browns and helped put together that real talented roster. So that tells you that kind of knowledge and those kind of tools can help in the evaluation process when it comes to team building. So, this league is great. I think we should take a warning from Major League Baseball. We should know that no one's going to come from the outside to kill or to hurt our sport. If something's going to happen, it's going to be from within, right? It's going to be some owner trying to get a coach to lose games just to get a higher draft pick, right? It's going to be because we don't let head coaches really run their team and pick their players. If they've got to coach them and develop them, they should weigh in at least in the process of picking who those players are. We have a lot of things that are happening internally that really aren't good for the game. You and I, when we came in, and we had the pleasure of being on the team that was led by one of its founders, and Paul Brown.
Right.
You can't get Paul to throw a game thinking some player from college is getting ready to walk through that door and save us.
Right.
They're like his ego is right. There's no one going to lose a game because some rookie is going to come in here and save us. No, if anybody's going to save us, it's going to happen from the guys right here. And so I just don't like hearing the talk of tanking to win. It's not a good concept. It's not a culture that we want to breed. And I think it's thoughts like that. If anything is going to take down the 10-ton gorilla, it is that kind of thought process.
At First Star Logistics, we're a very strict company that really puts the pressure on our employees. Breaks? What are those?
That's what I'm talking about, Icky. Get the body right, then the mind's right.
Gotta get that body right.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Become a star with a chance to earn the highest commission percentages in the industry as a freight broker agent. Check out firststarlogistics.com.